You are listening to the We Are West Ham podcast with me, Will Pugh, and I'm back with the opposition view ahead of Monday night's trip to the Vitality Stadium, where we go and face high-flying Bournemouth. West Ham, obviously fresh off the back of that, 2-1 win over Wolves, which wasn't exactly, didn't exactly set the world on fire. We hope you enjoyed the podcast this week with special guest Tom Rennie. We love having Tom on, and he's always interesting and entertaining. So hope you enjoyed that podcast. I'm delighted to say, though, that joining me to look ahead to that game, or the trip down to the south coast, is Craig Beasley from Up the Cherries in all departments. Craig, it's great to speak to you again, mate. I've just done your podcast and I was extremely negative and morose and downbeat about my own team. I assume you are going to be far more positive about your team on this pod.
Yes, I sure am, mate. I sure am. And thank you so much for having me, Will. Pleasure.
Pleasure as always, mate. Talk to me then, Craig, about Bournemouth this season. One of my favoured questions for the opposition view fans is, how are the fans feeling at the moment? But 8th in the league, you're going absolutely great guns. Probably unlucky to not have a few more points than you've actually got. How are you feeling? How are the rest of the Cherries fans feeling about things?
Mate, we're absolutely buzzing. To be honest, like you say, it could have been a little bit better. So against Chelsea, we was beaten, but we could have beaten
Absolutely
them.
robbed, weren't you?
Yeah, to be honest, we didn't take our chance. Did manage to get that one chance on goal, and he scored it, and well taken goal. So that's our fault because we didn't take our opportunities in that game. Against Leicester away, again, Leicester City, again, they got the one goal, ran away with it, and
Yeah.
sadly again robbed. And of course there was that VAR decision against Newcastle, so there's 8 points there add on top of what we've already got, which we're absolutely delighted with, mate. To be 8th in the Premier League at this moment in time on 23 points, is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's absolutely superb, mate. I mean, it's really, really impressive. What do you put it down to? Andoni Iraola is obviously doing an excellent job.
Yeah.
He didn't start very well, and he's sort of the only man that I've, or the only example that I've had to go on of, oh, well, Lopetegui started terribly, maybe he can pull it back. That's exactly
Yeah.
what Iraola did. But what's he doing so well? What sort of football are you playing?
We're playing the high brick football. I think when I did come on to the tap in, I did mention, of course, that a couple of games that the players were really adapting to Iraola's style. I just didn't feel that they were adapting to that. They have adapted now. We're going a lot more direct. Rather than passing around the back. And it's great stuff to watch, Will. It really is good stuff to watch. Semenyo has been on the right hand midfield. He's an outstanding player. Ryan Christie, through the centre, he's been fantastic, excellent. He always gives 110%. He never gives anything less. Justin Cliver, of course, popped up with that hat trick of penalties. First time that's been done for about 67 years. Yeah, unbelievable. And Evanilson,
I was going to ask you about Evanilson, yeah.
I had my reservations with Evanilson, to be honest, Will, because I thought that, of course, we lost Dominic Solanke. Now, Solanke used to drop back and bring other players into the game, and for Spurs, I don't think that Ange has really got the best out of him, but that's Spurs' problem. With different style, I think Andoni Iraola is coaching him him to where Solanke was to drop back, but he's strong, he's powerful, and makes great runs. He's a hassle. And even though some people would say, yeah, probably should be on more goals than he actually is. Let's be fair, if he was able to hit the target against Chelsea, we would have easily beaten them, as we would have Leicester. He's getting there. He's adapted to the Premier League now, and he's a real danger. And he looks a really good player. 40 million. I was scared when we first signed him because I thought, bloody hell, this team or minus in 2008 in League Two, where we couldn't fill out a three-sided stadium, as I did say. What we, spending 40 million, it was a big risk, but it's a risk that's actually seeming to pay off.
Where did you sign him from?
We signed him from Porto, so
Oh, right.
yeah, he's a. So
That in itself sort of shows how far Bournemouth have come, doesn't it? That you're signing players from FC Porto.
Yeah, exactly, mate, exactly, and I think it's a statement of intent. It's
How
a
so?
statement. Um, I think it shows that Bill Foley is hungry
Yeah.
for European football season. I said, look, 10th, I'd be happy with that. Have we got the strength in depth for Europe? Probably not at this moment in time. There's still reservations in my mind about, whether or not we could actually add on the European to invest heavily if that happens. But I think Bill Foley's plan is Europe. That's his aim. That is his desire. And each season, it's the most exciting. And even, a lot of fans are saying now, who would you rather? Eddie Howe, who is God, the Messiah at this football club. We would probably be, we would have gone into the National League if Jimmy Quinn had stayed in charge. He's the Messiah. But some people are now turning around and saying, actually, is Andoni Iraola kind of, in the Premier League at least? I don't think he could ever eclipse, because of course we had that journey with Eddie. I think the football is now pushing on to be more so. It is more attractive than what Eddie used to put out.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And that was
Honestly, I just think the whole thing's incredible.
yeah,
The journey you've been on as a football club's amazing anyway. But just looking at your team from last time, you beat Tottenham obviously 1-0.
yeah,
And so, I mean, Semenyo looks superb. But every
yeah,
time, and that's why I love that Evanilson. Every time I watch Match of the Day and I watch a Bournemouth game, he's involved. And if you
yeah,
score, he's involved. Whether he's winning a penalty, whether he's laying it off for someone else or putting it in the back of the net himself, or even just in the build-up in some invisible stuff, he
yeah,
is unbelievable. Justin Kluivert, like you mentioned, obviously doing well. But I think that's always sort of the sign, isn't it? Even Milos Kerkez, I know he's only the youngster you got a left back. Even he's
yeah.
getting some attention from the bigger teams. And I know it's a bit the sort of the bleak state of affairs that is modern football these days. But lots of these players that you've got are being looked at by big clubs, but also what I quite like with Bournemouth now, and I think you can tell by the fact that you managed to sign Kepa. I know people will laugh and go, oh, well, he was no good for Chelsea and he's been a bit of a calamity, but the money he's on and the sort of pedigree of club he could have gone to, I think generally Bournemouth are they've garnered loads more respect than they have in the past as no, we belong here. It's not like, oh, Bournemouth are going to go down any minute. It's like, no, we are a Premier League team now. Do you feel that as fans? Do you feel that from the outside world? And do you feel that yourselves?
From the stadium, everything else is at the football club is, fantastic. Of course, we have got a new training facility at Camford Magna, which is being built at the moment that year, which will then mean that we can knock down the existing training ground, which is just behind, or the Vitality, as most people call it now. So we're going. The manager, has been absolutely first class. I feel stupid for doubting him and even saying about Jesse Marsh at one point, but football fans are fickle, and it's good job that I'm not Bill Foley, mate. But
I'm not saying you in particular, Craig, but football fans can also be quite thick sometimes, can't they? This
yeah,
is like I've been there before, mate. Having big old strong opinion about something and been totally wrong. So I quite feel you.
he's been excellent. Andoni Iraola, you look at also what's going on in the background, straight off, for example, was straight off the training ground. What they're doing in training is paying off. You got Tommy Elphick as well, who's a hero at this football club, of course, part of that motion to the Premier League the first time round, and everybody was like pinching themselves thinking, this can't be happening to this into the Premier League. We're not feeling that anymore. We feel like we deserve to be there. The only thing is probably the stadium that we need to do something about. But hey, big sides, up and down the leagues. Sunderland went down to League One, for example. It's not all about Bradford City, a lot bigger stadium, of course. They're in league. So yeah, it's a great time to be a Bournemouth fan. Just mentioning on to Kepa, actually, who we signed on loan. He is probably the person host at the moment. So we have got Mark Travers, who is effectively our backup goalkeeper, an Irish international, and he's a very, very, very good goalkeeper. He made that fantastic save from Erling Haaland against Manchester City, which really made sense them. We have to pinch ourselves. We've tried all this time to beat Man City, and we can beat them. Wow, it was unbelievable. But Kepa seems to keep getting the nod. I think, and I might be wrong in this. I think that there is an agreement with Chelsea as if Kepa is fit or not suspended, he has to play so much time, which is wrong, really. Deserve to start over Kepa. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think Travers has really earned the football club, and I think, yeah, it's a little bit of a shame that Kepa has made, I think, sometimes his positioning. We saw it at the weekend, of course, against Ipswich. We've seen it earlier in the season as well, where I don't think his positioning has been that great. He could probably do a little bit more, and Travers would get to it. But yeah, he's probably the only one that really divides the fans. You look at our backline, Will, and sorry to bang on, mentioned the left back, excellent player, very, very quick, will get forward, get balls into the box, chips in with goal every now and again. Elia Zabani, now that Manchester City and Real Madrid were looking at him. Does that surprise me? Well, years ago, if you said looking at a Bournemouth player, I'd think that you'll start raving mental. Yeah, he's that good. He's a quality player. To be honest, if he had a better Euros for the Ukraine, he had a little bit of a stinker in Germany during the Euros. I think probably, somebody would have come in for him. Senesi's out, but that means that Dean Howson, who we signed from Juventus, of all teams, has managed to get. He was unhappy with the amount of game time, but then again, you couldn't take out Senesi. It's given Iraola a bit of a headache because he's trying to in.
That's sort of what you want, isn't it? You kind of want that for your manager. It's good to have two.
Yeah, he scored a fantastic header against Spurs, an absolutely. It was a little bit header against Wolves, where he's made a run in and got his head over to it right in the top corner. So yeah, very, very, very good player. And then you've got Adam Smith on the right hand side of the defence as well, who kind of just steadies and calms. But this is what's really good about Iraola is under Gary O'Neill, we played Brighton. Mitoma had time that he come up against him, and it was because Smithy was getting too close. Smithy's a legend at this football club. He always will be, regardless of what happens from here on. But he was getting too close to Mitoma. Done is to get Smithy to actually stay back a little bit and wait for that attacker to make the move, and puts in a tackle. And I think, Will, Iraola has got everything spot on.
Yeah, it's very impressive, Craig. It's very impressive. Right, talk to me about the game on Monday. Then West Ham go down there. What are you expecting? How will it play out? How will Bournemouth approach the game, sort of style-wise, tactically, and all that sort of thing?
I think we'll stay with what has served us so well. So this is really a 4 at the back, 5 in the midfield, defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder. Lewis Cook or Justin Kluivert just there in the centre, and then Semenyo side. He'll definitely be on the right hand side. Quite like Dongo Watara to come in because the other day against Spurs when he did come on. So yeah, I think that's probably going to be the start. I think the intensity will be there. And we seem to be beating teams quite well in the centre of the park as well. We've got full control
And that's
of
where
the.
we're at our weakest.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where Iraola will focus on. He does adapt. That's the biggest concern from West Ham fans about Lopetegui. Is he seems to be too stubborn to adapt, whereas changes he makes, sometimes under, even Eddie Howe, definitely under Gary O'Neill, you're scratching your head and you see there, Iraola's makes complete sense, and what he does change the game.
Yeah. Right. Go on then, Craig. What's the score going to be? Bournemouth v West Ham, Monday night, Vitality Stadium.
Um, I'm not going to bet against my own team, Will. I'm not going to bet against my own team. I think we are. I think we are going to win. It might be a blessing in disguise for West Ham, because I personally think that if Bournemouth win this game on Monday night, straight after, of course, I think that David Sullivan might make the change and go, right, okay, we need to get rid of Lopetegui. But I think a 3-1 win. I think Evanilson probably score. And I think Kluivert's been very, very good. He scored more goals, believe it or not, than Patrick.
Well, he scored more goals than Patrick did for Bournemouth anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, Craig, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the We Are West Ham podcast. Craig Beasley there from Up the Cherries in all departments. West Ham v Bournemouth on Monday night at the Vitality Stadium. 8th plays 14th. What I would give to have a couple of them Bournemouth players in our team, or actually Bournemouth's manager in our dugout. Thank you for listening, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed the content this week. Don't forget to follow us on socials at @WeAre_West Ham on Twitter. We Are West Ham Pod on Instagram. Follow, subscribe to the podcast on all the major podcast platforms, and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel. Email us at wearewesthampod@gmail.com if you like, and buy us a pint at buymeacoffee.com/wearewestham. Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for Craig, and me and Jonesy will be back as usual with the podcast probably out on Tuesday or Wednesday next week after the Bournemouth game. Up the Hammers, West Ham are massive, and we'll speak to you next week.